The most dangerous people in your life are not your enemies. They sit 3 feet away from you. They know your schedule. They attend your meetings. They smile when you walk in. And they are quietly building a case against you right now, using every word you have ever said to them in a moment of trust. Your coworkers are not your colleagues. They are your competitors wearing the costume of cooperation. The friendlier they are, the more carefully they are listening. Think about the last time you vented at work. Maybe it was a Tuesday. The office felt safe. Someone you trusted was nearby, and you said something real about your manager, about your plans, about what you are actually dealing with. You felt the relief of being heard. You thought nothing of it. That conversation is already in circulation. Not because they are evil, because the workplace is a survival environment dressed as a community. And in survival environment, information is currency. Every personal detail you disclosed, your frustrations, your plans, your vulnerabilities, has been filed, valued, and made available to whoever in that building needs it most. This is called workplace intelligence harvesting, the unconscious but systematic process by which people in competitive proximity collect personal information and convert it into positional advantage. They are not doing it deliberately. They are doing it because every person in a workplace is operating in a hierarchy where someone else's weakness is their opportunity. You have been funding their intelligence operation every time you opened your mouth. You have heard the phrase, "Keep your personal life private." That advice is 20 years too late for most people reading this. The damage is already in the building. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his career studying the most politically lethal environments in human history, the courts and councils of Renaissance Florence, where a single misplaced disclosure could end your position, your freedom, or your life. He was not a theorist working from a comfortable study. He was inside these rooms. He watched men destroyed not by enemies who attacked them from outside, but by allies who were simply better positioned to use what they knew. He documented the specific mechanics of how trust becomes a weapon and proximity becomes a threat. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived." He meant that the coworker who destroys you will not need to lie. They will only need to know enough truth about you, and you will have handed them every piece of it yourself, voluntarily, in the moments you felt most comfortable. There are 5 specific categories of information that, once disclosed inside a workplace, permanently shift the power balance against you. 5 things that have gotten people passed over for promotion, managed out of their positions, and in some cases terminated, not because of their performance, but because of what they chose to share with someone 3 desks away. If you are already thinking of the conversation where you shared one of these, stay. If you think this does not apply to you because you trust the people you work with, you are exactly who this was made for. The workplace is the only environment in your life where you are expected to perform friendship with people who are directly competing with you for the same resources, the same promotion, the same budget, the same manager's attention, the same limited number of positions at the top of the structure you are both climbing. You are not colleagues, you are competitors who have agreed to be polite about it. And the most dangerous thing you can do inside that agreement is forget which one is the performance and which one is the reality. The first secret to protect is the one most people hand over before they even realize it is valuable. It was the most expensive thing you have said in that building. 1. Your true financial reality, salary and bonus details. The moment a coworker knows what you earn, the entire relational architecture between you shifts in ways that are immediate, invisible, and permanent. If you earn more than they do and they find out, you have not built a connection. You have installed a resentment that will express itself in every interaction from that point forward. It will not look like resentment. It will look like subtle undermining. Comments about your work that carry a slightly sharper edge than the situation requires. A willingness to let your mistakes be visible to people above you that was never there before. The specific coldness of someone who has decided, without saying it, that you have more than your share. If you earn less than they do, the dynamic is equally damaging, but in the opposite direction. You have communicated your flaw. You have told them exactly how little the organization values you, and in a hierarchy where perception of value is currency, that information travels upward faster than any performance review. In 2019, a documented case at a technology firm in California became a textbook example of this pattern. two colleagues had been working closely for 2 years, genuine professional respect, effective collaboration, strong mutual trust by all visible measures. One disclosed their compensation package during a private conversation after a difficult negotiation with management. Within 6 weeks, the dynamic had shifted. The colleague began positioning themselves as the more senior contributor in meetings. They began referencing the disclosed number indirectly through implication in conversations with shared managers. The original employee was passed over for a promotion that was considered a certainty 3 months prior. They never connected the conversation to the outcome until much later. They did not lose the promotion because of their work. They lost it because they handed someone the exact information needed to reposition them. Sharing your salary with a coworker is like handing your poker hand to the person sitting across the table and then wondering why every bet they make seems to account for exactly what you are holding. The cards were always yours to keep. The correction is permanent and non-negotiable. Your compensation is between you and your employer. When the question is asked, and it will be asked, the answer is always a variation of the same sentence. I keep that private. Not apologetically, not aggressively, as a statement of fact that requires no further explanation. The person who never answers this question is the person who never gives the table their hand. That was the number they can calculate. What comes next is the information they can weaponize, and unlike your salary, you will hand this one over completely voluntarily, usually in a moment when you feel the safest. The next secret has gotten more people terminated than any performance failure in the history of employment, and it almost never looks like the reason they were let go. 2. Your negative opinions about your colleagues or your boss. Every workplace has a gap between what people say in meetings and what they actually think. The official position and the private assessment, the performance review language and the honest conversation at the end of the day. Most people carry both simultaneously, and most people at some point make the specific mistake of letting the private assessment leave the room it was supposed to stay in. You think your manager is incompetent. You think the colleague in the adjacent department takes credit for work they did not produce. You think the direction leadership is taking the company is wrong. These are not unusual thoughts. In most cases, they are accurate thoughts. The problem is not having them. The problem is sharing them with anyone inside the building. The workplace information network operates on a specific and devastating mechanic. Personal assessments shared in private do not stay in the form they were given. They travel through the network, through relationships, through the specific human tendency to share information that makes conversations feel more intimate and more interesting. And with every transmission, the original context evaporates while the content intensifies. You told one person in a specific emotional moment that your manager's decision on the Q3 project was poor judgment. By the time that statement has traveled 3 conversations through your organization, it has become, they said the manager is incompetent and the leadership team has no idea what they're doing. You did not say that, but your name is attached to a version of it that you cannot correct because you cannot see where it went. This is called narrative drift through social transmission, the documented process by which personal disclosures gain weight, lose nuance and acquire new context with each person who passes them along, until the final version bears no relationship to the original statement but carries the full credibility of the person who first said something. Robert Greene documented this exact mechanism across multiple historical courts in the 48 Laws of Power. The man who speaks poorly of those above him in any hierarchy does not damage the person he is speaking about. He damages his own position because he has communicated to every person who hears the statement that he cannot be trusted with authority. The logic is ruthless. If he speaks this way about his current superior, he will speak this way about anyone once the relationship shifts. No one promotes someone they cannot trust to stay silent when the dynamic changes. Machiavelli observed the same principle with the precision of someone who watched it operate at the cost of men's lives. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. The man who criticizes upward is neither feared nor loved. He is simply remembered, and not in the way he intended. The correction is not silence. In every conversation, it is the specific discipline of never expressing a negative assessment of any person in your organization to any other person in your organization. Your manager's competence, your colleague's work ethic, your CEO's strategy. These are private opinions. They live inside your head. They inform your decisions. They never leave your mouth inside the walls of your workplace. When someone invites you to share this kind of assessment, and they will, because this is how information is gathered in competitive environments, your response is always the same. I think there are a lot of perspectives on that situation. Then you change the subject. The person trying to extract your opinion will learn that you are not a source. Sources get used. People who are not sources get trusted. The first two secrets are about information that can reposition you or terminate you through indirect channels. The next one is different. The next one is information that can get you terminated directly, and it is the one most people would never consider protecting because it feels the most personal and therefore the most safe. It is the least safe information you carry into a building full of people who are competing with you. 3. Your health vulnerability. This is the secret nobody talks about, because talking about it would require admitting something that polite professional culture has decided to pretend is not true. The workplace is not a safe environment for human vulnerability. Your health, physical or mental, is the most intimate information you possess, and inside a competitive hierarchy, intimate information is the most precise targeting data available. You disclosed a mental health struggle during a difficult period. You mentioned a chronic physical condition during a conversation about workload. You shared that you were dealing with anxiety during a performance cycle that was already under pressure. You did it because the relationship felt safe, because the person across from you seemed genuinely concerned, because carrying it alone was exhausting and saying it out loud provided temporary relief. What actually happened in that moment is this. You disclosed the specific coordinates of your psychological and physical weak points to a person who operates in the same competitive environment you do. And regardless of their intentions, regardless of whether they are a genuinely good person with genuine concern, they now possess information that can be deployed in ways you cannot anticipate or defend against. The deployment is almost never overt. It is not they told everyone about your anxiety. It is the specific, almost invisible pattern of your manager receiving a subtly framed impression that you might not be able to handle increased responsibility. It is a comment in a hallway conversation. I'm a little worried about them, they've been dealing with a lot, that plants the seed of doubt before any decision is made. It is the specific way a concern gets raised about your capacity at the precise moment an opportunity is being discussed, in a room you are not in, by someone who knows exactly where to press. In 2021, documented workplace discrimination cases in multiple jurisdictions showed a consistent pattern: employees who voluntarily disclosed mental health conditions to trusted colleagues, not to HR, not through formal channels but in informal conversations, were statistically more likely to be passed over for advancement and more likely to be included in reduction in force decisions. The disclosures were never cited as the reason. They never had to be. They simply shifted the invisible perception of capacity in the minds of the people making decisions. Your health is not a professional topic. It is the most private category of information you own. The correction is absolute. Your physical and mental health belongs to you, your doctor, and the people who love you. It does not belong to your workplace. When someone asks, even with genuine warmth, even in a moment that feels completely safe, the answer is always, "I'm doing well, thanks for asking." Then you move on. The person who is never readable on this subject is the person who can never be used on this subject. Now think about the conversation you have had in the last 6 months, about where you see yourself in 2 years, the company you mentioned, the role you mentioned, the timeline you set. Think about who was in that conversation. Because what comes next is the secret that has quietly redirected more careers than any performance issue ever could, and it travels faster than any other information in this video. 4. Your plans to leave the company. The moment you tell anyone inside your current organization that you are thinking about leaving, your value in that organization begins to depreciate immediately and irreversibly. This is not hypothetical. This is the documented behavioral response of every manager in every industry who has ever received this information about someone on their team. The calculation happens automatically and without malice. If this person is leaving, investing in their development is investing in someone else's future team. If this person is leaving, promoting them creates a gap we will have to fill. If this person is leaving, the relationship between their future loyalty and the resources we allocate to them is negative. You intended to share your ambitions. You wanted to communicate that you are driven. You wanted to test the waters and see if the organization had something worth staying for. What you communicated is that the organization has already lost you, and the organization responds to that information by completing the transaction you described. They begin the mental and eventually the structural process of replacing you before you have replaced them. And that is if the information stays with the person you told it to. If it does not stay, if the person you told passes it through the network, which they almost certainly will because it is valuable information about a colleague's status, it reaches your manager before you have made any decision. It reaches HR before you have submitted a single application. It positions you as a flight risk in every conversation where resources, opportunities, and advancement are being discussed, and you will never be in any of those conversations. You will simply notice that they started going differently. Sharing your plans to leave with a coworker is like telling the team you are playing against that you are planning to switch teams next season. They will stop passing you the ball immediately, and they will be completely right to do it. The correction is simple, but requires the specific discipline of separating your actual thinking from your professional performance. Your job search happens in silence. Your conversations with recruiters happen outside the building. Your assessment of whether to stay or leave lives entirely in your own head and in conversations with people who have zero connection to your current employer. The day you leave is the day they learn you were considering it. Not one conversation before. The previous 4 secrets can damage your position. They can slow your advancement. They can make you a target in political conversations you are not part of. But the 5th secret is the only one on this list that can eliminate you from the building entirely, quietly, cleanly, and in a way that leaves you no recourse. This is the most dangerous category of disclosure in the entire video. 5. Your secret ambitions and career goals. Not your plans to leave, your plans to rise. The specific role you believe you deserve. The level you know you are capable of reaching. The vision you carry about where your career goes, if everything aligns. The ambition that sits beneath your professional performance and drives every decision you make about how you invest your time and energy. This information, disclosed inside a workplace to a colleague, does one of 2 things depending on who receives it. If they receive it from someone below them in the hierarchy, someone whose ambition threatens their position, they will work against it, quietly, systematically, using every piece of information they now possess about your goals to position themselves as the more qualified, more ready, more organizationally aligned candidate for any opportunity that intersects with what you just told them you want. If they receive it from someone at the same level, someone with the same ambition, they will use it as competitive intelligence. They now know the exact opportunity you are pursuing. They know your timeline. They know how important this specific path is to you. And they will pursue the same opportunity with the additional advantage of knowing what you want while you remain unaware of what they are doing. The workplace is not a place where ambition is celebrated when it is declared. It is a place where ambition is rewarded when it is demonstrated. There is a specific and critical difference between those 2 things. Declaring your ambition tells everyone in your competitive environment exactly where to position themselves to block you. Demonstrating your ambition through work, through results, through the quiet accumulation of capability, gives no one the information they need to redirect your trajectory before you have arrived at it. Sun Tzu wrote this principle into military strategy 25 centuries ago. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. He was not writing about career advancement, but he was writing about every competitive environment where revealing your objective before executing it gives your opponents the exact information they need to neutralize you. Your ambitions are the engine of everything you are building. They belong in your actions. They do not belong in your conversations, not with your manager until the timing is right, not with your colleagues until the position is already yours, and not with anyone in your organization who benefits from knowing where you are going before you get there. Now step back and look at all 5 together. Your salary, your opinions about management, your health vulnerabilities, your plans to leave, your secret ambitions. 5 different categories, 5 different mechanisms, one single architecture running beneath all of them. Every one of these disclosures transfers positional power from you to the person who receives the information, not because they are malicious, Because the workplace is a competitive hierarchy, and in a competitive hierarchy, whoever holds more accurate information about the other players holds more power over the outcomes those players are pursuing. You have been treating the workplace as a community that happens to have professional goals. It is a competition that happens to have social rituals. The social rituals feel like community. The competition is the reality. And the people who navigate that competition most effectively are the people who understand, at a structural level, that information shared in the community context will always be used in the competition context. Machiavelli watched this exact dynamic operate at lethal stakes in the courts of Florence and wrote the observation that belongs at the convergence of everything covered in this video. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. The fox recognizes traps. The fox does not walk into them voluntarily. The fox does not announce its path through the forest. The fox arrives at its destination, and the wolves discover it has been there only after the fact. You now know the 5 traps. You know how they are constructed. You know how they operate, and you know the specific behavioral corrections that ensure you never walk into them again. If this video reached something real, hit the like button. Subscribe if you want this level of precision consistently. If you want access to the full workplace intelligence framework, the specific counter-tactics for identifying which coworker is currently building a case against you, the behavioral signals that tell you information has already leaked, and the advanced positioning strategies for reclaiming ground after a disclosure has already happened, click the Join button. Inside, the content goes to the operational level. This platform does not allow publicly. The men inside already know why they pressed it. You stayed through this entire video after a hook that told you something uncomfortable about the environment. You spend 8 hours a day inside. That is not the behavior of someone who wanted to be comfortable. That is the behavior of someone who would rather know. Do not leave this video and walk back into that building the same way you walked in this morning. The next conversation someone tries to have with you, you now know exactly what it is.